Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's full-time reaction to Kilmarnock 2, Celtic 1 back indoors after the actual full-time reaction was called off due to the torrential rain at Rugby Park when we were leaving. So I've got Callum and Darren, who were there with me at the game, to go over. Darren, what I think was obviously first defeat of the season, first league defeat of the season, but it feels in many ways like that's been coming, given the way the performances have been recently. And today, second half, we got absolutely battered second half, really.
Aye, and I think you kind of summed it up there perfectly, mate, because that is our first defeat of the season. But if you go by performances, don't want to say it's been coming, but the performances have been poor. I think to Motherwell, Hibs, I could just St Johnstone at home at the start of the season, I could name you so many, and we've maybe just got away with, you know, a late winner or a win by a goal or a 0-0 draw. And it's, when you look at it, you can't be selfish and say it's a crisis, it's the end of the world. But today is that first defeat of the season, and it has been coming. And I don't think it's wrong of me to use the word unacceptable. Sometimes you can say the word unacceptable and you can maybe go a bit far, but that second half today was unacceptable. Granted that you go to Kilmarnock, they've got the plastic pitch. It was shocking it down, so it was never going to be an easy game, right? But we'll take the first half. We'll take the first half. We'll start with the bad stuff, right? We'll start with the second half. The character showed by the team was not acceptable. I'll give it to Kilmarnock because they went in half-time losing, right? But they came back out and they had a go at us, and it almost felt like we didn't know what hit us. They got in our faces and we shat the bed. I think complete lack of character for the team, for everybody, even for the manager, just looked a bit lost as well. I think he's starting to get a bit fed up with the team as well. I caught his press conference there with Sky on the way back home, and he just looked deflated. I think he knows himself that some of the players in that team just on the up to it. I mean, I'll start with one. Nat Phillips, right? He's a riot. He's Shane Duffy. He's got 3 weeks left, I think, before he needs to go down to Liverpool. I'll pay for his train ticket right now if he goes back down to Liverpool, right? You've got 8 million or 7 or 8 million pound worth of centre backs who are, one made the bench today in the Rocky, right? He made the bench. He's still not anywhere near the team. But the manager says that they need to show in training that they're good enough to play in the team. I don't know what Nat Phillips is doing in training, but he must be doing something brilliant because on the pitch, he's shocking, man. He was at fault for the goal at Hibs on Wednesday. He's put the ball in his own net the day, right? That can happen in any game. Defenders can score on goals, but his all-round play was just shocking, man. And even just like Greg Taylor, Liam Scales as well. I mean, he's been in terrific form, but what you've got with Liam Scales is it's similar to Ralston 2 years ago. He was playing above his level, and it's almost impossible to maintain that for a full season or for years and years, right? And you can start to see that he's slowly, I don't want to say he's regressing, but you're seeing the level he's at, and he's a decent player, but he shouldn't be starting every game for Celtic. He's not that good a player when we've got multi-million pound centre-backs on the bench. I actually just seen a stat on the way home that every league game Lager Bielka started, he's kept a clean sheet. So why not just give him a chance, man? I know he was injured and he's not been perfect, right? He's not the perfect centre half, but surely he's got to be better than like Nat Phillips and Liam Scales. But I mean, I feel like I'm picking on Nat Phillips here, right? But overall, the whole team was shocking today. I think it was a mental thing because we showed in the first half, right, that we've got the ability. I thought first half we were really good, especially the first 15 minutes. It kind of stalled a wee bit towards the end of the first half, but we got the goal and we should have made it more. If we go into half-time 2-0, I don't think we lose that game today. And it's all about taking chances, and I'll name drop O as well. Big chance for him, man. Started on Wednesday at home to Hibs, completely different circumstances. You're at home where you're going to be dominating the ball, and he scored 2 goals, done well. It's different when you're in an away game and you need your striker to make that moment. You talked about moments last week, Paul, at St Johnstone with Callum McGregor. O needs to do stuff like that. He had a perfect chance to score from 5 yards out and misses the ball. He had a great ball earlier from Mikey Johnson. I said it to you during the game. He should just gamble and make the run at the box. It doesn't. So just stuff like that is cost us today. Major recruitment needed in January, I think. If we've got Carter Vickers, who's got this hamstring issue now. He never played today, probably because of the plastic pitch. Hopefully he's back. But if he's out for a few games throughout the season, imagine McGregor gets injured, imagine Kyogo gets injured. Who are we going to turn to? The squad's already at its bare bones. We're missing the wingers so much. I know we've got Palmer there who's playing well, but sometimes you get a bit inconsistent with Palmer, where he becomes predictable. He just wants to cut inside. That was just one of his days for Palmer. That's when you need Maeda or Abada. Unfortunately, we've not got them. Now we're turning to Yang. Forrest, who I think we all agree on is probably past it. Maybe 10 years ago he could turn to Forrest, but not anymore. Mikey Johnson had another below par game despite coming off the bench and making impacts, but the last 2 starts he's just failed to make an impact. So the fact that we're turning to these players, just it's not good. It's not good. We need to start making signings in January.
I think that tells you where the squad is at in Callum. After a defeat, there's always, I mean, the scattergun's out for everybody after a defeat, right? We accept that. That's what happens. I think for me, we've talked a lot about the squad. We've talked a lot about recruitment. It's clear that a lot of the players brought in the summer either weren't ready or weren't good enough. I don't think the squad's in a great state, to be honest. We've got a lot of deadwood, and as I say, a lot of players that are struggling to make the grade. But to this point, and I know after Motherwell at home is probably the most unhappy I've been, but to this point I've been really defensive of Brendan Rodgers, and I listened to him make the point that Lagerbielke and Nawrocki need to show them personality, and they need to show that they can cope with the demands of playing for Celtic before they can get in the team. But mentally, to me, Nat Phillips doesn't really look like he's coping with it either. So it does baffle me, the justification for putting Nat Phillips in and not someone like Nawrocki, who you've invested £4.5 million in. You've signed him up on a 5-year contract, and yet you go to the short-term loan player who's only here for another couple of weeks, hasn't played a lot of football at all himself, and that's not to dig him out for his, to back him up for his performance today. But I think the manager needs to take responsibility. Obviously, he's the one that takes responsibility for the performances, but I find the selection quite baffling at centre half, and I've touched on Liam Scales recently as well, who I know has been performing above a level that we expected from him, but there is no getting away from it that he's a limited player. Celtic can't go on long term with Liam Scales at centre half, and it seems like a witch hunt against him. It seems like I'm out to get him, but the fact is we need a better player in that position. If you think about the prospect for an opposition player being up against Cameron Carter-Vickers, you don't really fancy it because he's really strong. You can't get round him. He's quick. It's difficult to beat him in a race. I think I'd fancy my chances against Nat Phillips and Liam Scales in a race as well. I think that the defence is a big problem for us, but bigger than that, I think in the second half, the whole team, we get pushed about. We didn't stand up to Kilmarnock's physicality. They came and pressed us much more than they did in the first half. And the first half was good. We started the game really well. We created some good chances. We played at a good speed, but Kilmarnock obviously changed things at half time. They came out to be more aggressive. They got closer to us. And we didn't really have a spell in the second half where we had concerted pressure in their half, really. I think it's summed up by the added time at the end, where you're hoping that we can muster something, we can push, as we've seen Celtic do so many times over the years. But spent about 3 minutes of the added time in our left back corner, just Kilmarnock holding us off and winning throw-ins.
I mean, Darren's pretty much summed up how I feel as well, and how pretty much 99% of the fans probably feel. The only person that he missed out was Greg Taylor. Absolutely shambolic. He should have had a blue and white top on the day, because that was his level at Kilmarnock. He's never a player that's higher. And fair play to the Kilmarnock board to get £3.5 million for him, because what a steal that is. Taylor is way beyond the level that Celtic require. But throughout the whole team, look, the biggest issue after reflecting on the game now is that people are saying, yes, Celtic had an alright first half, a good first half. I mean, Kilmarnock still had clear-cut chances. The boy Armstrong hits the crossbar in the first half. Now, if you flip it, and Johnson clears it off the line, but if you flip it the opposite way, when Celtic have a poor half and Kilmarnock have a really good half, Celtic still don't have the chances that Kilmarnock had in the first half. So Celtic dominated the ball in the first half, but still gave away easy chances. And it's kind of covered up because Mikey Johnson can beat a guy and whip a ball in, and Owen misses a slide for a wee tap in. But that's the reality of this squad and where it's at now, is that when Kilmarnock don't play well, they can still grind out good chances, and they were unlucky not to get one to go in at half-time at a level. With the second half, they battled us for the full 45 minutes. Celtic never had anything going forward. Like, there's so many issues. You've Yang getting on before Forrest, and then Forrest getting 8 minutes. It's almost like a desperation of just throwing the kitchen sink at it and hoping something sticks. But in reality, we all knew that it was coming. Paul actually says to you, I says, mate, I'd take a draw right now. When it was I said, I'd take a draw. I'd be happy with that because I seen it coming. I seen the goals coming. We looked vulnerable. We looked nervous, scared. Phillips is one on his own, and nobody's going for Phillips on his own. Phillips is a big boy. He's 26, 27 years old. Played at Liverpool, played in the Premier League, although not many games. Yeah, atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. He got caught in that like a deer in headlights. Some of the stuff he was trying to wrestle with Vassell and then scream for a free kick, yet he's pulling Vassell to the ground, and Vassell's just trying to run away from him. He was poor in the air, poor defensively, poor covering the
ball.
ground.
I thought both centre halves were really
Oh,
poor on the ball in the second
even
half.
the last 5-10 minutes, and the ball's coming from the left back of Kilmarnock, and he's trying to then put the ball back down the line. He's slicing it, and it's going out, and Kilmarnock come up 70 yards up the pitch. There's no constant pressure. We didn't put any on. It was Kilmarnock that put the pressure on us, even though they were 2-1 up. And look, Brendan Rodgers can say what he wants, but look, I didn't pick the team today near the Jordan. Brendan Rodgers picked the team, so it's on him as well, just as much as the players. He chose to put Phillips in there, knowing fine well that, like Lagerbielke, he's had 5 clean sheets of his last 5 appearances. I just don't understand why the people that we've spent the most money in aren't getting a look in at all, but the people who we've spent the least money in usually start week in, week out. That doesn't really seem like it makes sense to me. How can you have £8-9 million worth on the bench that doesn't play, but Yang's starting most weeks, Mikey Johnson starting? Look, I was a fan of Mikey Johnson as well, and look, it's a bit of a scattergun approach because a lot of folk are getting it, and it's the first of it, so people might say, oh, you're overreacting. If Rangers win the game in hand, you're still 2 points clear, but this has been coming. You felt it. It's not really felt right since Rodgers has came back, and anybody that says has, they're lying to themselves. Something's not really clicked, and look, I don't know if that's maybe a blessing in disguise, losing, because does that maybe put everybody on a clean slate and go, look, we need to get back on this, we need to bounce back, this is what we do? I don't know. Maybe I'm just clutching at straws. But look, Kilmarnock deserve to win. I can't sit here and say Celtic were this or they were that, the ref was poor or whatnot. Celtic were not good enough, and that's what happens if you're not good enough, especially away to Kilmarnock. And look, the pitch, can't even blame the pitch because it was soaking. So the pitch was a brilliant surface to play on. It's no sticky, it's no bobbled.
Well, it's the first half on it.
Exactly. So you can't even blame it. And then, I mean, throughout the whole squad, I know it's like, I've not really got confidence in Joe Hart either now. When he comes out for one-on-ones, as soon as that ball's played from Armstrong, you just feel the worst. You feel as if he goes into a shell, he doesn't spread himself and get out quick enough or block it. I don't really feel like I see Joe Hart making many of those saves.
It's hard. It's hard with the one-on-one because he has one-on-one. He's so close to the goal, and generally you expect a striker to finish a chance like that. But I think it does almost go through Hart a wee bit. And listen, he's way down the list of being at fault for the goal. But I get your point. I understand what you mean in terms of needing him to make the big saves that sometimes you don't expect your keeper to save, but he saves them at big moments. But I want to steer away for Hart a wee bit. And just on your point there about the gap, I think it's not even about the gap for me, because I think when we were 7 points clear, that we didn't look like a team that deserved really a 7-point gap because we hadn't performed at the level yet. And I think the most concerning thing over anything, regardless of what the league table looks like just now, is the level of performance. And it has been generally all season. We've had 2 or 3 good performances that you've wanted us to build on. Wednesday night is probably another one. I think Wednesday night against Hibs is another one where you think, right, can we go to Kilmarnock now, a more difficult game away from home, build on that performance? And it looked like in the first half we might, but again, similar to St Johnstone, but flipped. You can't play 45 minutes of football. We got away with it last week because it was the first half that was bad. and Rodgers talked them round and they came out and performed in the second half. It was the opposite today. We got a better start. We got the lead in the game and we had control of it. And as I say, we couldn't match Kilmarnock's intensity in the second half. Darren, again, I don't want to repeat the recruitment thing because we've been like a broken record all season. But it's a travesty that we've got the most money we've ever had, and the squad is not better in one single position compared to last season. And all the positions where we lost players, it's weaker. So Palma's the only player in the summer who came in that you thought looks like he's got something, but again, inconsistent. He's worse than Jota. He's not as good as Jota. Starfelt has been replaced by Liam Scales. He's not as good as Carl Starfelt. Where else have we improved? We haven't. The squad's got weaker. The starting lineup's got weaker. And today we start with Owen. I know you touched on the chances that he had, but Callum, you've mentioned this to me and I've disagreed with you because that Kyogo's not a Brendan Rodgers style striker. I think he could be and he should be. There's no reason why he can't be. But I mean, it's a travesty for me to leave Kyogo out. And O gets his 2 goals during the week, and it's a good performance. But again, when you get your chance to start back-to-back starts, it's about doing it consistently because it's symptomatic of the whole team. You can't do it for 45 minutes, so you can't do it one game and then follow up with a really poor performance. Because I think how much involved was he in the game? Okay, sometimes because he's got that physicality, but he passed up all the good chances that he had in the game. And 2 or 3 of the chances in the first half, you're screaming for Kyogo to be on the end of. The cutbacks along the face of the goal, the goals that Kyogo's been scoring for most of the last 2 seasons. I'd like to see him back in just because he's a dip of confidence. Doesn't mean I think that he should be out of the team.
You covered a lot of ground there, mate. I'll try and pick the bones at it. With O, I think the thing is like playing with a team like Celtic, there's always going to be so much pressure on a player, particularly a young player. And I don't really like football cliches, but you're only as good as your last game, if that kind of makes sense. And like it kind of goes back to what I said in my first point. Like in a game like that, you need somebody to step up with a moment. And like I said, when he's at home, he's got the Celtic fans behind him. He probably feels more comfortable. He's got more confidence in himself. Whereas today, Callum, you pointed out to me when we were walking away, like he's hitting himself and all that, pure frustrated with himself because maybe he's not in the right position, or he's trying too hard. It looks like he's trying too hard sometimes, and he gets frustrated when he misses a chance, and it can almost affect his confidence. And that's the kind of thing you get with our young players, like the inconsistency. And when he's maybe not a multi-million-pound signing, or he's not a household name, he's not used to these kind of pressures. So that's just unfortunately the way it is. You look at somebody like Giakoumakis, who he wasn't at a big team, but he was in a relatively big league, a bigger league than Scotland, and he was playing in Europe, and he was at a decent age in his career where he's probably experienced several things, so he could cope with pressure in big games, and he came up with big moments. Think of St Johnstone last year, and that's just for one example. So like my point is, like, I know I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but my point is a lot of the squad just now for me is at a young age for me. It's a bit random, but if you look at the Celtic squad that got a UEFA Cup final, like your Larsson, Lambert, Sutton, Hartsnott, they were all at a decent age in their career where they could cope with like the pressures of playing for Celtic and playing in these big games. I'm not saying these players can't, but you've got like the average age of the squads maybe like 20, 22, 23. Your only real experienced guys is Callum McGregor and Joe Hart, who's obviously a goalkeeper, so he's not out there. I know the goalkeeper does kind of help players out throughout a game. I'm not saying it doesn't, but when you've only got Callum McGregor and you can say Kyogo's at a decent age in his career, but he's just maybe he's not a leader on the pitch. He's not that kind of personality. I still look at Kyogo and I still think he's like 21, just because of like his size and stuff. So I think we need more leaders in the team. That's the kind of players that we should be looking to sign. You could say like Nat Phillips was kind of brought in for that because he's in his prime of his career and that's not really worked. But just we need to. I know what broken record here with the projects thing. That's what we kind of need to steer away from. If we are signing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to sign projects. It's always a good thing. But what you need is the contrast, the opposite to it. You need those experienced guys on the pitch who can who can get them through a difficult game like that today, where you're in the second half and you're under pressure, it's pissing down with rain. They're probably thinking, I just want to get this game over with and get in a hot shower. But you need leaders on the parks. I'm going to sound like Roy Keane, but you need somebody with a bit of grit and determination like that. That's your job, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's just things like that. So it's just, unfortunately, when you sign young players for not a hell of a lot of money in regards to Celtic standards, and you expect them to come up with moments, and they don't, we shouldn't be too surprised, really, should we?
I think that's a good point. Sorry, Callum, just before you come in, it's a good point, because late in the game, who are you looking at to stand up and respond to the physicality and aggression of Kilmarnock, and all the players we bring off the bench? None of them really have that, and I know that's an argument for O starting, the physicality and the aggression, which is in contrast to Kyogo. But just to round off the point that I was making, I would never have him starting ahead of Kyogo, and I know it's fine to take Kyogo out and rest him here and there, and he's not been having a great time, but I would never start him ahead of Kyogo, especially in a big game. Like, we know Kilmarnock away is difficult, and I know we get beat there, listen, earlier in the season with Kyogo up front, but I listened to even the post-match on BBC earlier, and they're talking about would Shankland or Miofsky not score more goals than Kyogo in this Celtic team, and it's like, has he just been out of form for 5 minutes and everybody's acting like he's not scored 60 odd goals in the last 2 seasons? Callum, sorry, you were going to come in on Darren's point there about the age.
I was just going to say, look, it starts with the board and it ends with the board. That's it. And simply because Celtic have spent nearly £20 million, but they spent 3.5 on Lagerbielke, who's a young boy as well. So they've got that completely wrong. When Celtic under Ange, and I don't want to go back to Ange because he's gone, but we were buying players like Juranovic, 26, Giacomakis, 26. We're spending 3.5 million on those players at the right, exactly, at the right age. Starfelt as well was a good age. I think Starfelt was about 24, 25, and he was 4.5 million. We spent the money on the right age to come in and improve that squad. This year we've spent 3.5 million on Lagerbielke, who I think is 21 years old. Way too much money for a 21-year-old if he's not going to play week in, week out, i.e. Abada. When he's fit, he plays, he scores, he contributes. Like, that's what you get for your money at that age. But buying players for a lot of money and then not playing them, I don't know what it says. I don't know if it's it's the board's fault, because they've not done the fans justice or Rodgers justice. Rodgers came back for European football. I'm sitting to myself walking back to the car today going, why have you came back? What was the point? Why did you come back? Because look, you didn't come back for the Scottish League. You've told us that. You came back for Europe. But yeah, there's the board backing you, giving you £8 million on 2 centre-backs, 2 young boys, don't get in your team. So that's not a Rodgers signing. Rodgers didn't come back for those 2, or they would have been playing. That's clear. It's the board that have brought these players in, and the board have done everybody out. The only people that were happy today are probably the board, because they still see it as, well, it's money in our pocket, we're still sitting top of the league, and we're still building. Hopefully we can turn players into diamonds. It's not enough. And Rodgers says that he needed 4 players in the summer that were going to be quality players that could join the starting 11 almost, to replace players, i.e. Greg Taylor. Look at the top teams in Europe now. Everybody's a physical side. They're all physical specimens. They're bullies. They're not just hard hatchet men. They're men that can run, athletes that can properly run. Look at the highest level. And I'm not saying Celtic need to be Man City, but look at Man City's back 4 today. They're all above 6'3". They're all huge, but they can all play with their feet. Celtic have a major issue, and I showed you a picture of the Phillips goal and the boy that's out in the wing. I think it's Armstrong's about to cut it back. You've got McGregor, and then you've got Johnson's way behind in the picture. There's 3 Kilmarnock players all in a row behind each other, ready to tap it in if Phillips doesn't get it. Phillips puts it into his own net. That's not a great... Who's training that and training? Who's defensively setting Celtic up and saying, okay, look, this is how we keep a line? The line was disjointed. As soon as you lose Carter Vickers, by the way, a player that's experienced now, one of the players that we need to turn for experience, as soon as he's out of the team, Celtic are majorly vulnerable. And I don't even want to think about Santiago Jimenez on Wednesday. It's giving me the absolute fear of him against Welsh, because I'll agree with you, Paul. I'll agree with you now, so I never agreed with you at the time. I thought Scales was done really well when he came in and he deserved his chance. But the more that I see it now, and especially for the second goal, He needs to man up and go to the ball. I don't get what he's doing. He allows Armstrong to dictate the situation. You need to step up and close the gap so the ball either goes back the way or he needs to beat you. And physically, you should be beating him. You're much taller. But he allows Armstrong to dictate because he backs off. Armstrong then goes, well, do you know what? I've got a runner. McGregor's no following him. I'll slide him in. Boom, 2-1. And you're getting caught. That's amateur. That's Aberdeen level. And that's why he didn't make it at Aberdeen.
That comes back to the organisation. In defence, Phillips is also like 5 yards deeper than everybody else at that goal, which is making the runs of the Kilmarnock players so easy because they don't need to worry about timing it. They don't need to worry about being onside. There's a Celtic defender 5 yards
Just allowing
them. And I think both goals, to be honest, the first goal comes from a good run for midfield for Kilmarnock's point of view. I think it's maybe for Watkins, but the second goal is almost in counter-attack because we've tried to, one of the few times in the second half, we actually got up the pitch and mustered an attack, and then we get hit in the counter and we're all over the place. But I think across the pitch, dreadful. Dan, we've obviously got this European game, as Callum mentioned there, a dead rubber really. It'd be nice to try and get rid of this 10-year without a win at home in the Champions League, but if we're playing anything like that, I wouldn't expect it. And then next weekend, we've got Hearts at home. We've been saying this, we've nearly played half a season now, but we keep saying the performance level needs to get a damn sight better.
Aye. Wednesday night, we'll start with that. You said dead rubber there, it kind of is, but to me it's also a must-win game, if that makes sense. I feel like there's this monkey on the back of the entire club in Europe that we need to get this out of our mind that we can't win in Europe. So just there's no pressure, there's nothing to play for. Just go for it, try and win, and then that way, hopefully we're back in the Champions League next season. Still a long way to go, but it's a discussion for another day, right? If we're back in the Champions League, we can go in there knowing that we can beat a team like Feyenoord, because we've not beat it, and I know we've only just been back in for 2 seasons, but it's 11 games now, where 3 draws and the rest have been defeats. So for that, even for the players that will be here next season, just give them that confidence you can. I know the phrase has been said, but we've competed, but there's a big difference between competing and actually going out and winning a game. It's 2 different things. So if we can go there and beat Feyenoord, then that can at least give us a boost going into next season, that we can, hopefully if we don't get a big group of death, that we can actually go and play for something, maybe just Europa League, whatever. But I looking forward to domestic, because that's basically our whole season now. It's just the league, and obviously we've got the Scottish Cup as well. But December's always just that horrible month where you've got a hell of a lot of games, and you're up against teams, and it's freezing cold, and the pitches are always in terrible nick this time of year. So people always just say, especially away games, just to go and get the 3 points. But we now, the supporters, because of how bad today was and how poor some of the performances have been before, people now want to see not just the result, they want performance to match. I think the supporters deserve it after today and after the last few weeks. It's all right, like you say, beating Aberdeen and Hibs at home convincingly, but then going to an away game like Kilmarnock and struggling, you need that consistency, and that's why we were so good last season, the season before, because we could go to Kilmarnock and have the game done by half time. That's why we won the league. Going to be a bit different now, obviously 2 points, and obviously we've got Rangers at the end of the month as well, who are obviously they start the season really poor, but they've got a good bit of momentum now because they've got the new manager, and not to say they're playing great, but what they're doing is they're winning. That's what I know. We're not losing per se. We lost today and we've had a few draws, but they're winning and they're catching us, and I think that's probably our fault as well, because they had such a bad start, and it's almost like a subconscious thing maybe in the team and the manager that we've thought. I know that supporters will say it on Twitter and that the league's over already, but it's definitely not new. They're right behind us. They're chasing our tails. So December's always a hard month. So what we need to do is we need to beat Hearts next weekend. We need to put on a performance. I think we will, because we're at home. My worry's away games, because like I say, it's you go there. The Celtic fans are always the loudest, right? But you've always got those. The longer the game goes on, particularly St Johnstone, the longer the game goes on, it gives teams something to hold on to, and they've got their fans giving them support. So I actually thought today that when we got a goal that we would have seen it through, but boy, was that wrong. We absolutely crumbled second half.
Aye, we did. I think the thing that sums up this season so far is being underprepared. We were underprepared in the summer, and I think that's why we see the inconsistency. Because of the lack of preparation. I don't think the club expected to lose Jota. I don't think they expected to lose Starfelt. and they certainly didn't replace them well enough. And we're in this strange. There's always been a strange feeling for the start of the season about the manager not knowing his best team, the recruitment not being right, and we've had the constant theme of inconsistency throughout the whole season. And we come to this scenario where we're in December and we're saying we need to fix it in January. The board need to fix it in January. They need to get it right in January. As if there's a viable excuse why they didn't get it right in the summer when they had 3 months. They knew that Postecoglou was leaving. They would have known Rodgers was coming in. Rodgers had all of the pre-season. They had the most money they've had probably ever, the highest revenue. We talk a lot about money in the bank, but they didn't prepare properly. We weren't ready for the start of the season. We messed up the summer transfer window, and now we're saying, oh, well, we need to correct it in January. But why did we not do it right in the summer? What's the reason and the excuse for not getting it right in the summer when the summer transfers the window where all the business gets done, and you don't need to start with the excuses about how hard January is and how difficult it is to get the right players and the right quality in January. Why did you not do it in the summer? That's the big question, and that's probably the worry about how we go forward. And can we get the right quality? Can we get the right players in January to improve the team, not to improve the squad, to improve the starting 11? Can we get that quality? That's the big question mark, and that's what we're up against. The fear is that we panic now because we are in January and we're midway through a season and we've had a sticky start. I don't think we should be in this position, but here we are. Right, that'll do us for today. Like this video, comment your own thoughts below. Callum, when you go.
See, just before you go in, the worst damning stat about everything you said there, Celtic haven't won 3 games in a row all season.
In all competitions, yeah.
That's all you need to know. So consistency, it's not going to happen. These players have told us that over these last few months that they can't do that. Massive changes in January, but again, the board have just neglected the whole situation with the Green Brigade. There's always feels like there's something in the back burner that's irritating and doesn't allow Celtic to go full flow. But that's the most damning stat. 3 games we haven't won in a row at all.
Yeah, and the thing I was going to round off with there in terms of the squad and getting things right in January is that people will say, well, you've got enough quality to beat Kilmarnock. You should have enough quality to beat these teams in Scotland, Motherwell, St Johnstone, all the rest of it.